the most I know is up to 1 billion, for example, or multiple billions, but a trillionaire, I I wouldn't be able to think at such a higher level as that, for example. So I mentioned well, in my video, which I'm going to upload, I talk about real estate, and it's important to look at the assets that you've got with these contracts, because you could have multiple contracts. It could be maybe one contract, but you could have like 5 or 6 contracts, but it all could be the same government. Like with me, I had multiple contracts with the same government. I think it was 4 or 5 contracts with the same government, and then recession hit, and it's like a domino effect. So with regards to, and I'm trying to give you some shocking facts with regards to contracts. If things go wrong, you could, if you rely on one body, which I believe Elon Musk is relying on one body, the 20 billion, I believe, is majority of it is the government, for example. If something was to go wrong and then you lose, it's a domino effect. You would lose all of those contracts one after the other. So when you have a business like that, how sellable is it? Because if you've got one contractor, for example, and you've got multiple contracts within that one contractor, i.e. the government, if they decide to pull the rug under you, then you've lost everything. You're back to square one. So this is why I always say, and this is the reason why I'm saying the shocking truth about contracts, is do not rely on one entity to give you your contracts. Don't think that you're secure because you've got government contracts, because things can happen. The public purse can change, recession could hit, and then they could end up either reducing that contract by half or stopping it altogether, which is what happened to me. It got reduced by half, for example. It's the recession. I understand that. It was 2008. It was a tough time, for example. But what I want to share with you is the shocking truth of contracts, that don't rely on just one entity. Make sure that you've got an even spread, so that you've got, like, say, a third is government contracts, a third is private contracts, and a third is another type of contract from another entity, so that if one of them goes, you still got income coming in and you're still fine. Yeah, so this is the reason why I'm talking to you today about how having these contracts can actually cause a problem for you. So make sure that you don't rely on just one person or government organization or one entity to give you those contracts, because you could have a group of the same company and then suddenly they stop. Like what we're going to be seeing here is that there's things that are just stopping dead because the cutbacks and the layoffs and the freezing of funding and things like that. So it's going to have a ricochet effect on other things, on other businesses, on the community, local shops, the list goes on, in families, for example. So do not just rely on one contract. And that is the shocking truth about contracts. I'd love to hear your thoughts about what I've just said. Now, like I said, there's so many things that's happened in this week that we can't ignore it. And I'm trying to discuss with you about the consequences for when you're contracting, for example, but there's also best business practices, ensuring that you're not doing anything that's going to affect the contract that you've got, that there's no conflict of interest. Because at the end of the day, we have to be fair and transparent, and so does every person that does have these contracts in place, because otherwise you could get found out. It could be you could think you got away with something, and then a year later it could be, oh, your cousin actually was working in the same department as that contract, and they knew about it before other people got to hear about that contract. So they got the, to know what was, because that cousin spoke to you and said, hey, there's this contract coming up and they're looking for this and they want that and blah, blah, blah. Do you think you'd be able to? And then, that is a conflict. That's a conflict of interest. And you could get found out about it, that, oh, actually your cousin was working in that department and they informed you, so they had a head start above all the other contractors, the suppliers, and they had like inside information. You never want to be in that situation, for example. So like I said to you, that having these contracts, it's all well and good, but you've got to make sure that you're able to deliver. And yes, there's going to be hard times, because running a business is not easy. There's going to be hard times, but as long as you're following your policies and procedures, and you've got the right compliance in place, and that you showed evidence that there's no conflict of interest on your documentation, then you're good to go. You're fine. But like I said to you, there's so many shocking truths about contracts. People think having a contract, you see someone, you see that they're doing really well, and oh, I want that. I'd love to have that. You haven't looked at the steps that person's had to do to get there. They've worked hard for it, for example. They've had to put things forward. And I'm referring to you, the business owner, not referring to anybody else. I'm referring to you, the business owner. So when you're looking at applying for contracts, make sure that you're compliant. Make sure that you've got your policies and procedures and you've got it down pat. Make sure you've got your audits ready before you even start the contract. You get your audit ready. You've got everything all lined up. All staff are compliant. The dates, checks, everything balances up. You've got all the correct insurance in place, and that you've done an audit, and that you've got it signed with another co-worker, for example, to show that nothing was rigged on your behalf. And you, in that contract that you've signed, it would have said anyway, are you related? Do you know of anyone that works in this department that could bring rise to a conflict? You have to say yes or no, for example. If it's yes, then you have to say what it is and show evidence. You say no, then that's fine. But if they find out years down the line, well, actually your cousin or sister-in-law or brother-in-law, they're the ones that told you about this contract before other people got to hear about it, then that's not right. So, I wanted to share with you the shocking truths about contracts, because there's so much that's been going on this week about contracts, and I think it's important that we take this information and we know how to do it correctly and to support the community. Like Elon Musk, he's been networking with government organizations, for example. You network with your community and see what the needs are in your community. Talk to the people. They're the ones that will tell you what's truly needed. As well as speak with, network with organizations, that can give you the work. For example, law firms have events, hold events, there's lots of things you can do. Meet with government organizations, tell them what it is that you're looking to do and whether there's any way that you can work together, collaborate together, because that is how it should be. Everyone should collaborate together and work together. I explained to you at the beginning when I did this talk live tonight that I had 2 men come into my office to threaten me, to say they were going to take my contracts off of me. Contracts can really make people really become greedy, should I say, because they want what you've got. Now, I'm not saying that this is happening with Elon Musk or anything.